and welcome again to another episode of Found in Interpretation Podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Alain Breton, and I'm here with Brian. Brian, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. And we're also here with Frances. Frances, how are you?
I'm doing really well, thank you.
All
I'm
right.
really excited to be here, actually.
Let's kick it. All right, we are here with Frances. I'm going to try to pronounce your name correctly in English. I say France or Frances?
Frances in English.
Okay, all right. So we're here with Frances Kushner. She's a professional conference interpreter, English and French and Spanish. She was a professional actress in mostly theater, film, voice, and television. She's a member of ACTRA, Equity and former stagiaire with the UDA, that is the Union des Artistes here in Quebec. And she worked professionally for several years as a professional actress before transitioning to interpretation. And this is what our theme of the day is. It's the transition and the link between professional actors and interpretation. So is there a link among those two?
I think there is, and before this discussion today, I thought, I know what I wrote down. I jotted down a few notes and I thought, I wonder what ChatGPT thinks, because what do we do when we want to research something these days? We don't look at encyclopedias anymore. In fact, I was thinking ChatGPT is like today's book of encyclopedias. So I looked it up. And I asked ChatGPT, what's the difference or what's the link? And it said that interpreters are voice actors for real people. And that resonated with me because truly we are. We are voice actors for real people. And there's lots of things in common, and I'll touch on some of them a little later throughout the podcast. But I can start by telling you about how I transitioned.
Well, actually, before you talk about the transition, can we take a step back and can you
Sure.
tell us how you started your career as an actor?
Okay. It's a long story, but I'm going to give you the Cool's Notes
Podcast.
version.
It's a podcast.
So I have a degree in social work. I have a Bachelor of Social Work. And after I graduated, I was working as a social worker in foster care. And I went after almost a year into it. I thought, this is not my thing. I didn't know what I wanted to do in life. So I had to find myself. So I decided to go to Israel and do that. And I was going to go to a kibbutz, but I found this program and it was to volunteer. So I studied Hebrew, and then I went to a hospital where I was volunteering doing art therapy with patients. Okay. And so I was in the world of art therapy and I loved it. I thought this really interesting. But then I ended up having to go volunteer at different places, and they gave me a choice. For a while, I was at a museum researching antiquated musical instruments. It was interesting, but it wasn't really dynamic. So then I have a background in dance, and I found a theater company that needed a choreographer. So
In Israel?
In Israel, yeah, in Haifa of all places. And I thought, okay, I'll do some choreography. I had done a little bit of dance choreography, not really professional, but on a professional level. However, they asked me, and then they said, we actually have a role. We would like you to audition. I said, I'm not an actress. And anyway, long story short, they believed in me. I didn't know what to do. So I went back to university, started studying theater at the University of Alberta. And then I went, I don't think I want to be at a university studying theater. That just doesn't sit right with me.
I didn't even know you could study theater at university. I'm sorry. I thought that there
Yeah,
was like
there's all.
conservatoire
Oui,
or...
bien sûr. There is. There are different conservatories. There's the National Theater School that you're referring to, and there's other theater schools, and you can take all kinds of workshops and that sort of thing. But there are theater schools. And I was in a university environment studying theater, and I wasn't in the Master of Fine Arts program, but I was taking theater nonetheless, and I decided that's not for me. I drove my Honda Accord across the country in the middle of winter, 20 below weather, and I arrived in Toronto, and I started taking acting courses all over the place. I did so much. And then I heard about this wonderful theater school in Paris, in France, and that is the École Internationale Jacques Lecoq. And I thought, oh, it's movement based. And I had been studying a lot of text, improvisation, speech, diction, voice. And I thought, wow, that sounds really cool. It's international. I love doing things on an international level. I spoke French, but it wasn't that great. And I thought, I'm going to apply. And I applied and I got in and I did the 2-year program at École Jacques Lecoq, which still exists to this day. And that changed my life. That changed my life on so many levels. And, I learned so much and so many things that actually apply to my work as a conference interpreter. Now, that theater school, a lot of people are still professional actors, and we had a reunion. We had a class reunion in Paris last September. And one member of our Canadian Senate was my classmate.
What?
So people after acting, after theater school, can become professional actors, which is what I did, but you can also become a senator, or you can, become a teacher. You can become.
You mean in the actual Canadian Parliament,
Yes,
there's a
yes.
senator?
Oui, yes.
Okay, all
There
right.
is. Who was my classmate?
May I know who?
Yeah, René Cormier. L'honorable René Cormier. For me, he's René, And we sweat a lot together at that theater school. There were a few other Canadians. And I came back and I started working professionally as an actress. I wanted to work in Montreal. It didn't quite work out. At the time in Montreal, as an actor, if you had an accent that was not either Quebecois or Quebecois, you were out. It just didn't work. I would have had to stay there and really adapt. My French is more international, although now the French, of course, that I use for my work is all Canadian French, but I have an international French accent. I don't have a Quebecois accent per se, and that was an issue at the time. So I went back to Toronto, or came back to Toronto, kind of upset because I really wanted to work in French. But unfortunately, I had to start working in English. However, the first play that I did was in French. I mean, of all things, it was for the school board and it was in French.
But aren't there more opportunities for actors in the English-speaking world? Maybe more competition as well. But I know that Toronto, I don't know how it is nowadays, but Toronto is or was a booming location for actors, and Vancouver as well.
Absolutely.
And in Quebec, you would be stuck in the Quebec market, which is a lot smaller with 2 TV channels.
I know, but I was so inspired by the European way of doing theater. I thought, maybe I could combine some of the movement theater with the more text-based theater and do like a mix, like a mélange of different theater styles and create something in Montreal, which is where I wanted to be. Anyway, ended up in Toronto as my base, and I worked from coast to coast. So from Nova Scotia all the way to Vancouver, different theater companies, mostly in Ontario and also in Alberta. I worked a fair bit as well, and I loved it. I mean,
Were
I
you
loved it.
originally from Alberta?
Originally, je suis d'Edmonton. I'm from Edmonton. I know I shouldn't be going bilingual in this
Do whatever
podcast,
you
but a
like.
couple little phrases might come out. Yes, I am one of these rare persons from Edmonton that speaks 7 languages. I mean, I don't think a lot of people do. I'm studying my 7th. It's not very good, but I'm
What's the
from
list?
Edmonton. Okay, in order of fluency?
Whichever
Sure.
the
Okay.
order you've learned them.
English, French, Spanish, kind of similar, I would say, followed by Italian, Portuguese, Hebrew's pretty bad, and I'm studying Korean, and I'm at a low level, but I'm getting there.
That is quite impressive.
Is that so that you can listen to Squid Game in its original audio? Or?
Exactly, without subtitles. So anyway, I'm from Edmonton originally, and I did work both in Edmonton and Calgary as a professional actress. Where else have I worked as a professional actress? I worked in Havana at the Havana International Theater Festival. I did a co-production, Canadian, but I'm Canadian, and some of the other creative staff, they were Canadian, but it was done with a Cuban actor as well. It was a duo. We had a great time in, acting together, professional actor. And so I've worked, I worked kind of all over the place and in mostly theater. That was my passion. But film is special, and I'm glad I learned the ropes in film, but film is tough. Film is really tough. Like, it's really hard to get into that market, and film and television. I also did voiceovers, and I discovered towards, I would say, the latter part of my acting career, voice work. I was part of a loop group, which is, do you know what a loop group is?
No, I was going to ask.
Okay. A loop group is, you know how you'll watch a film and you'll see background actors. I did background acting as well. They don't want to pay them a lot, so they pay them as extras, and then they get professional voice actors. So if you're in an office, there's the ambiance in the background. There's, oh, can you put this through the photocopier? Oh yeah, just pass me that. So I would be part of that loop group doing those background voices. So it's kind of it was a specialization, let's say.
There's
in
a
acting.
specialization in background
No,
actors.
in regular actors as voice actors.
Okay.
So that the background actors can be the background actors, voice actors, but these loop groups do like background voiceovers. And I did industrial films. I ended up doing a lot of voice work because I was told that I have a good voice in both French and English. So I did quite a bit of voice work, and that's what I miss the most.
Is that what led the transition to interpretation?
No. I thought you might ask that. Not
I am so
really.
predictable.
Not really. As an actor, you have to do a lot of things, okay? So a lot of guys, some women too, they go into the construction field doing, handyman, just stuff you can do. You can do it 1 day, 2 days, waiting for your next gig. It's stuff to fill in the time, secretarial work, office work. I had a part-time gig every summer, well, for 4 years anyway, at the Toronto International Film Festival at TIFF. First year was a programmer's assistant, thanks to speaking Portuguese, because there was a Portuguese delegation that was coming, and Brazil was being spotlighted at that time. And then I was a publicist for 3 more years. So I was there for 4 summers or 4-month contracts for 4 years in a row. And it was, as a publicist as well, it was the languages that I speak, right? The ones that I was speaking at the time. So I could do the interviews. I could translate for the actors. So I did it. And then there was a Cuban film. Don't ask me which film. I don't remember which one it was. So there was a Cuban film, and the programmer at the time said, oh, no, you don't want to do the question answer period for this particular film director. I said, well, oh, no. His Spanish, his Cuban Spanish is very difficult accent. I was like, okay, doesn't really worry me, but sure. He goes, we've got a guy. And this guy, Harry Tanner, wonderful.
Consecutive?
To do consecutive, the questions with the audience, or the before introduction if the filmmaker wants to speak about the film. So anyway, this wonderful man, he did it, and I understood why they wanted someone else. Oh my goodness, would have been very tricky. And he said to me, have you ever considered being an interpreter? I'm like, nope. I said, I thought maybe when I came back from France about being a translator, but I decided like a written translator, but as an interpreter, no. He said, listen, I'm a subcontractee at the Immigration Refugee Board of Canada. Why don't you go there? You write a test. He said, your Spanish is good. Your French is good. Like, why don't you go? So I went. I did the test in Spanish, and I worked there for several years, Spanish, and then later on French. Okay. So one day, way back when, a colleague calls me up and she goes, hey, Frances, are you free tomorrow? I said, yeah, what's up? She said, well, we have this big AIDS conference in Toronto, and there's this pre-conference, and I don't know what happened, but we're short one interpreter. It's Spanish. I said, so like consecutive.
This one have happened to me in 2006, was it? Because
I
I
don't
was at
have
that
the.
International AIDS conference as an interpreter.
Oh, well, you know what? It could have been. It
Okay.
could have been.
Wow.
But they had the pre-conference.
Yeah.
The pre-conference for the journalists.
Okay.
And this one, she's like, we're stuck. And I said, well, it's simultaneous. She goes, yeah. I go, huh? Well, she said, wait a second. In the hearings at the IRB, when the lawyers are doing their closing submissions, do you do it consecutive? I said, no, are you kidding? That takes so long. I do the whispered interpretation at the back of the hearing room simultaneously. She goes, well, at that time, I had interpreter training, but I never had any professional training as a simultaneous interpreter. I just picked it up while doing it at the refugee board.
When you said you had interpreter training, did you go to the masters or some school in Paris?
And I've thought about Glendon, but I kind of missed the boat because I had kids, raising kids and working. It was too crazy. It was too crazy, and I was balancing before my kids, or right after my eldest was born, balancing a career as an actress and also as an interpreter. It was really complicated. Okay, so to do proper training. So I did the MCIS 6-week interpreter training program, where you learn community interpreting. Okay, so it's community interpreting training. I did the test. I did that whole certificate program when it was in person. I think now they do it online. It was pretty intense because I thought I have to know what I'm doing. And I took, every professional workshop that was available at the time. I did it. I did it through Atio. I did it through Appli. I did whatever was available. Okay. And so when this wonderful colleague, Emma Dantas, who's Portuguese interpreter, she said, well, it's just like doing the closing arguments. It's just like the lawyer's submissions, but you're in a booth. I said to myself, in a booth? In a booth.
So you had no, you had
nothing.
Before that, you were not curious about it. You'd never heard about it. You had,
no.
All right.
No, I knew nothing. Okay. So I was completely open. I thought, well, why not? You have to take a chance sometimes, right? So I did. I thought, she said that there's an interpreter there who's going to help you out. She's a very experienced interpreter. I thought, okay, fine. I get in there. It's a booth. I'm like, wow.
And it sounds true.
Yeah, I'm kind of like, this is familiar. This is really cool. This is like doing what I'm doing as an actress. Okay, I'm like a voice actor. Okay, I got it. Met my colleague. She showed me the console. The technician came in, did a sound check. Everything was good. And then I actually had some written speeches. I was like, oh my God, this is too good to be true, or so I thought. And so I thought, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this speech, I'm just going to mark it up like what I do as an actor. Okay, so this is a natural break in intention. Okay, because I'm thinking more of the personnage, the character, right, and the development of the character. It's my actor mind, and I was like, okay, this would be natural point to pause. If the speaker is pausing, okay, so I marked it up, marked up the text. And then here we go. And my colleague warned me. She said, "Look, you might have this for this speaker, but we don't have anything for the next one." And she
Or they
said,
might not follow the script.
and they might not follow maybe one or two lines, but be prepared for anything. I thought, okay, I've done a lot of improv training. I'm going to go for it. So I sit down. I'm in front of the mic. The speaker starts. I start doing my thing. She's like, it was in Spanish, like, see. I'm like, okay, got it. Okay, I can do this. I'm like, and that was good for about 4 sentences. And then, of course, the speaker went all over the place. And it was, it was speaking in English. I was going into Spanish, as I recall, and it was all over. And I went with it. The night before, I remember the brains to say, okay, what do I know about journalism and AIDS? And I looked up some words I didn't know. Is that what you do? I didn't have Chat GPT to ask, but I did it. And I really enjoyed it. And I thought, wow, this is something that I would absolutely love to do. And that's how that little spark, or shall I say that little seed, was planted. And then after that, I thought, wow, I would really like to do some training. If I'm ever going to do this again, I have to know what I'm doing. Like it's got to be more rigorous than that. And so Atio at the time was offering a series of workshops, and the instructor was James Nolan, who used to be with the UN. And I thought, great, I'm going to do it. So this was Spanish to English. That's what was being offered, and that's what I did. And it was great, but what an eye opener. And I realized how much I don't know, and I realized how much I need to learn and how much I need to practice. But it gave me confidence, and it gave me kind of a method to my madness, so to speak, And that workshop really changed my life. I really thought this is something that I can do, that I want to do. And I continued to little by little get more and more work in Spanish. But I remember one thing in that workshop. We were interpreting some politician speeches. And at the time, there was Hugo Chavez, the former president of Venezuela. And I don't know if you've ever heard his speeches. They're very
very
passionate,
fiery, yes.
very fiery.
A lot of passion.
So one of my colleagues in the room said, Mr. Nolan, we're wondering, do we emulate this level of passion, or do we kind of keep things a little more neutral? So he goes, he looks at all of us. He goes around the room and he goes, you, maybe. You, no. You, no. You, no. And I'm waiting for him to say no to me. You, he points to me, and I'm like, yes. You, maybe. You, no. And then everyone was looking at me like, yes.
Hold on, just to pause here. So he was basically saying who should emulate him? How come? Okay, I don't want to jump the gun here, but how come it's not one answer for everyone? Why why did he think that one interpreter should do it one way or another? It's more than capability. It's an instruction on how to act professionally.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it was. And, we were all curious about that. He said, after all eyes were on me and I was kind of like melting in my seat, he said, because I can hear that. And I think we had to give some sort of information about our background, because you have a background as an actress, and I can hear in your voice through some of this other speeches that you've done, you have a range with your voice. And I think whereas some others might just burn out while they're doing it, like they may start fiery, they may just fizzle out, but you can do it. Let's hear. And then I felt really put on the spot, but I thought, okay, I have to build the character, because if I start at 100, I'll have nowhere to go. And with someone like Hugo Chavez, if you've ever heard his speeches, he's pretty intense, or was
That's
pretty
right.
intense. Yeah.
Did you
And
happen to have this book at the time? It's interpretation techniques and
I know,
exercises.
but I've seen it. Yes, I have several pages, in fact,
James Nolan.
photocopied from that. James Nolan. Exactly.
I knew the name
Exactly.
rang a bell. This is like a
Yes.
blast from the past for me.
Listen, he taught the program at Glendon, I think maybe before your time, but he definitely was one of the teachers there. Then I know he had some health issues, but yeah, definitely. And he was really very direct and very honest and upfront. There was no kind of kid glove type feedback. It wasn't all mushy and good. It was very direct, very tough, kind of like at my theater school.
So the instruction was basically for you to understand the character in order to emulate Hugo Chavez while you're interpreting him.
To embody, so to speak, while working. Yeah, those were his instructions. So I did it. And I was able to pull it off for some miraculous reason, I think, given my theater background. And I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll have to move to Venezuela to work.
Do you think that the embodiment of the speaker helps perform better?
That's a really good question. I think to some degree, I don't think you can fully embody, but I think you can step into their headspace and their voice, even if I'm sure you've both interpreted professionally in situations where maybe you don't really believe the speaker, the product, the something. We
Happens all the
have to
time.
be like actors. We have
Or Switzerland.
Exactly. So I do believe that it is something that, that we can really do. I really do believe that it should be done. I have listened to some interpreters who tend to render a very flat type of delivery, and that is fine for certain kinds of conferences and certain kinds of speakers, but I'm not that person. I can do it because in my head, I get out of my head and I embody that. If they say, look, we just want a very natural delivery, and it depends on the subject matter.
It depends on the speaker. I mean, if I do a quarterly update of a bank, nobody's going to do the fiery speech, but they want to make sure that the numbers are right and that you inspire confidence. That's one thing. I did a meeting for unions where somebody, like it was the head of one of the big unions, and they were making a fiery speech against a famous politician south of the border. And then I automatically, because I was aspiring to become an actor when I was much, much, much younger, and I don't know, for some reason I took on that character, and I also did the fiery speech. I think that we naturally adapt according to the feeling that we get from whoever we have in front of us.
Tout à fait. Yeah, I agree. What do you think, Brian?
This is kind of why I let Alain take the reins on this one, because I knew, like, from his background or his past, that he wanted deep down. If interpretation was never in the radar, it would have been acting. So,
if AI takes our job, you know where I'm heading.
Yeah, I know. I'll see you at I'll be eating popcorn while you're acting.
Can you eat a popcorn in a theater like a play? I'm not sure if people eat popcorns at play. I don't think so.
I don't know. I have no idea. Probably not.
Really?
But This must be really hard though, because I remember back in the day when there was the AIDS conference. I
Mhm.
think that it was in 2006, and I think
I
our paths may have crossed
so it
because
could
I
have been.
was doing most of the French interpretation. There was lots and lots of teams there, so it's
Yes.
possible that our paths crossed back then,
Yeah.
and we didn't even know it.
Yeah, I know.
But now, like after all those years of being in booths and stuff, now we're a lot of times stuck behind a screen. Do you find that like Zoom has hindered the whole embodiment of a person giving a presentation, or how do you feel about that?
That's a really good question. And it was during the pandemic where I had done a little French interpreting before the pandemic, but it was really at the start, right at the start of the pandemic, where it was like all hands on deck, learning the platforms and having the confidence to go for it. And that's when I started working more and more in French. And I was like, I even did some remote interpreting, but not from home, at the interpreting agency's office or extra office, or kind of like a makeshift booth where they're the technical, where I can concentrate on being just the interpreter, not the technician as well. So I think that maybe at the beginning it may have hindered a little bit that ability to embody, but it didn't hold me back. It really didn't hold me back. I now feel that I can embody or step into the speaker's voice or their headspace and just give the delivery that they're looking for. Whether it's a financial report, then of course the emphasis has to be on accuracy. Well, we always have to be accurate. And I guess that's one of the differences between acting and interpreting. So there's really that focus on giving on the accuracy, be it numbers, be it dates, those kinds of things. We don't have a script that we're reading off of usually, or sometimes we have at least the numbers and sometimes we have nothing, right? So we really, it's really interesting. However, there are things in common, like, for example, what is the point if the listener can't even hear the numbers because we're mumbling? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
At the École Internationale Jacques Lecoq, when we started, we worked with the neutral mask, the masque neutre, and the whole reason for that was to.
What's the neutral mask?
It is a mask that was created by an Italian mask maker called Sartori, who invented these or made these kinds of masks in order to be able to do more theatrical kinds of mask work. It's
a physical. It's not a. It's not.
no, it's a leather, beautiful. My God, these
Does it look
beautiful
like?
leather
Have
masks.
you seen the movie Vanilla Sky?
No, I haven't.
Tom Cruise wears some kind of a plastic mask because he gets disfigured in the movie, and I thought it was maybe some mask like that.
It's one that doesn't have an expression.
That's
Do you
right.
know what
Yeah.
I'm saying? So perhaps similar idea. And the whole idea of that is to get rid of les petits gestes, the little things we do as actors. We go, well, we have the things we count as actors. That's just what we bring into it as human beings. We do the same thing in interpreting. I'm sure you've recorded yourselves and listened to your
Yeah,
recordings where you go,
little
oh my
ticks.
God.
Yeah,
And you hear the, especially when you stumbled,
Yeah, the fillers
we all have them. And when you listen to yourself, you have to eliminate it. At the beginning, at this particular theater school, the first few months, we're getting rid of all of that in order to build a base, in order to build, and in order to bring the right stuff to the stage. And I think that in a way, as actors, as interpreters, we need to be able to do that too.
Would you have some tips to tell interpreters about how to have a better voice, something you observe on the market, and you're
Absolutely.
like, well, maybe interpreters should be aiming more in this or that direction. Do you have any tips on that?
Absolutely, absolutely. Clear diction is extremely important. The projection, the modulation of our voices, that is something that is so important, along with we've been talking more about the emotional nuances and the embodiment of the speaker, but I would say that this kind of training is so important. We absolutely need it. I mean, who does a vocal warm up before going on mic? Most people don't. I once on Hot Sauce Interpreter, someone said, does anyone know? I did like a 10-minute demo of how I would do a vocal warm up. Do I do it always? No. I don't always have the opportunity to do it, but
You've published something on YouTube?
no, not I
So that's
didn't do it on I
interpreters.
did it on Hot Sauce, just kind of I don't know if it still exists, but it was just some exercises just to warm up the voice. It's our instrument, you know? It's like playing the cello. A person's just not going to come in and, just play the cello without warming up the strings or adjusting or fine tuning. And I think that we could do that. I also think that if you've listened to yourself, if interpreters, it gets back to my earlier point. What's the point in mumbling a bunch of numbers if this listener cannot hear? Listeners need to be able to digest. They have to be able to digest what the speaker is saying. And if you listen to yourself, then you realize if you're going too fast or you want to get in everything, slow down, take a pause. And those kinds of little things are super important. It's the message. We're not parrots. It doesn't have to be every single word. And in order to be able to do that, I think interpreters should have as part of the curriculum, actually even at the master's level, they should have some speech training. I don't know. Have you heard other interpreters where they're blah, 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 or it's just it's irritating to the
Yeah,
ear.
I have. Yes, and to come back to your point about the mumbling and just a very monotone voice throughout, like
Mhm.
AI does that. Like,
Yeah.
so like I would encourage anyone who does that as an interpreter, and you should record yourself before to make sure if you're one of them or not. Stop doing that
Exactly.
because your job's going to be replaced by AI. And this is like we talk about AI pretty much every episode on pattern interpretation. And I would say like if you're gonna, kill this profession, keep doing that.
Exactly. Exactly. So, what can interpreters do? Part of our professional development, people take how to use ChatGPT or how to create a proper glossary. We do that kind of professional development, some hands-on interpreting, learn the salami technique, etc.,
Yeah.
etc.
Well, what I was told when I was doing my master's at
Hmm.
Glendon, and unfortunately, it cut. The in person
Mm,
cut short because of COVID.
mm,
Back in 2020, we
mm,
were supposed to have an instructor. His name is Hans, and he was famous for doing these warm ups, voice warm ups, and things like
mm,
that. I was told by other interpreters.
mhm, mhm,
But before that, we were told that it was important to have sort of our booth character
mm.
in order to find our own voice. So
Nice.
what I did in my case, I was listening to a lot of French politicians and presidents
Mm,
and those big like I wanted to make sure that my voice and my presence behind the microphone would reflect this heaviness that you can find.
mhm,
And I remember that when I first started interpreting,
mhm,
maybe because I was onshore, I always felt that my breath was cut short right here, and
mm,
the air was not going through
mm,
all the way to my lungs.
mhm,
But then I had to learn, but I sort of had some tips.
mhm,
It wasn't really structured, But on my own, I went to get some resources on how to speak from more like from this part of your
Yep,
body
exactly.
rather than here.
Then up here.
Exactly. And when you're nervous, you get to mumble, you don't breathe well. And when
Yeah.
you're interpreting, you may be aware of those techniques, but sometimes when you have a very fast speaker, you're not sure about the topic, you don't understand. That's when you fall into those old habits. So the trick is with
Exactly.
experience is to control yourself and still, although it's stressful, to find that voice inside of you in order to project confidence.
Exactly. It's
Mhm.
that, and it's a certain sense of calm, and I think if you can bring that calm to the booth, it's great. Even when all hell breaks loose, even when you've lost power, you're working with your booth mate and you're trying to figure out if they can take the microphone. And even if, it really is a sense of learning, having good diction, good ability to navigate the troubled waters, because things happen. Things happen when you're interpreting. So my suggestion would be to take community or get involved in community theater, take an improv class. Improv is great, you know? Physical, like actual physical improv with word second city type stuff. And I'm sure I know that they have these kinds of courses in Toronto. I know also that they have, I know that you could, the Linklater Center, for example, they have voice classes. So you're going in there, you're doing actual voice exercises, learning how to, as you say, ground that voice, breathing properly, be it voice classes, diction, speech, public speaking. All that stuff is so important. You know, there's one other thing though that I do want to mention, because it really does go hand in hand with being an actor. It's a little story that I'm going to tell you. It's a short one. I was doing a play, so I did everything from Shakespeare to, modern theater to more avant-garde theater. I did everything, the whole gambit. But at one point, I was doing a period piece. It was an adaptation of Shakespeare. No, it wasn't an adaptation of Shakespeare. It was based on a piece about Mozart. Anyway, I messed up on stage and I skipped forth 2 pages of dialogue. And I was like, and my colleague actor, my fellow actor, kind of looked at me with panic in her eyes. And she's like, okay, let's see. And she just continued giving me the line. We continued. And then when there was the appropriate space, I jumped back, got in the 2 pages of dialogue that we missed, and then jumped forward. And I mean, I was sweating and I was wearing one of those period piece things and I could barely breathe as it is. Talk about needing the training to have a grounded voice. That actor was amazing. She went with me. She trusted me. After the director said, I don't know how you did it, but you pulled it off beautifully. So what I want to stress here is it's that ability to work with your booth mate and being able to deal with when all hell breaks loose, being able to deal with it, to go with it. And that's why the sense of teamwork. The teamwork that I had from that actress at that time was just outstanding.
Which is so hard to get when you
Yeah.
work remotely, unfortunately.
It's hard to get, but it
Especially
is
on
what
Teams.
it is. Teams is, yeah, I know, it's really hard.
This podcast
But
is not sponsored by Microsoft Teams.
No, absolutely
that's
not.
for sure. That's for sure. But with your back channel, through WhatsApp or however you communicate with your fellow interpreter, we can make it happen. It's what we have. It's the majority of my work is online rather than in person. And, we embrace what we have and we go with it and we do the teamwork in as much as possible, given the circumstances that we have. But I think we can do it. So I would encourage people who maybe have some issues with their voice or in moments of panic with their voice, you know, think about doing some proper voice training, or people who have difficulty with diction. Why not take a speech or diction class? Some people are afraid of public speaking. Take I think, what is it, Toastmasters or public speaking courses? I think anything that you can do to feel confident about your voice, so that when the curtains are about to open and the lights go dark in the theater room, just like before the countdown, when you're the
When
first
the
one
show's
on
gonna start,
mic,
yes.
it's that particular moment where you ground, you find the calm. And I think that if you can do that as an actor, you can certainly do it as an interpreter. And if you're an interpreter with that ability to adapt from the acting profession and make it yours, I think you can do it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And one of the other things that I would take away is the projection part that you mentioned earlier.
Mm.
Both in both directions, because we do a lot of whispered interpretation too with
We
the
do.
portable transmitter.
Hmm.
And if you're
Absolutely.
like, you have to control your voice, but the other way too. Like, you can't have everybody in the room listening to you when you're doing whispered interpretation. Like,
I know.
defeats the point, right? So yeah, so the projection would work both ways. And also in the other direction, where like you're doing a very technical legal workshop, for example, and
Hmm.
you're too loud, like,
Hmm.
so, and like, you have a booth, but we all know that these soundproof booths aren't exactly soundproof. So when everybody in the room can hear you because you're projecting your voice too much, it's the same thing. So I agree, like, you need to work on projection for when you're too loud or not loud enough, depending on each circumstance.
Hmm.
That's really important, especially when you're in person. And the other thing that I think I would give as a tip as well is, if there's something like a speech that you're looking that you know is on the agenda, there's going to be a speaker that is very passionate, like
Hmm.
your example of Hugo Chavez. I would maybe, instead of doing 30-minute shifts, maybe do 15 or 20, because you know that for self-preservation, you're not going to be able to keep the same pace as that person. So like,
Hmm.
maybe you do shorter shifts, and then that way you get more breathers. That would be another tip that I would give, because I wouldn't want to not give 100% because I think I'm not going to be able to make it to the end of the speech. You know what I
Mhm,
mean?
mhm, mhm,
Well, sometimes for me, it's the opposite that happens. I remember maybe 6 months ago,
mhm,
one of my favorite sort of podcaster commenter on what's going on in the world. His name is Peter Zane, and he wrote several books, and I really like what he has to say. He has a very interesting take, but and I had he was one of the keynote speakers at one of the conferences that I was interpreting at,
mhm,
and the hard thing for me was to pass the microphone to my booth mate, because I was like, I just enjoy so much this
mhm.
speaker and what he had to say that I didn't want it to end. So for me, it was the opposite.
Were you in my cog? We get
Yeah.
some of those in the booth too, the ones that don't want to like go to the mic. They're like, no, I still want to go.
Yeah, with Mike Hogg.
Let me shine this time. I won the star.
But it's my turn. And then there's
Yeah,
other colleagues that have like a stopwatch right in front of you. It's like,
I know.
it's 30 minutes and 001 seconds. Like, we're
You owe me
time to
10
switch.
seconds.
Yes, time to
I
switch.
know. I know. I know. But, with both professions, I mean, really, they're both, the stakes are high. The stakes are high when you're on stage, and the stakes are high when you're on the mic, or if you have to be, of course, we need to be vulnerable, and we need to be able to take the good with the bad, and we need to be able to adapt. And I think it's that ability to adapt that has allowed me as an actress to transition to interpretation, take a chance, get some training, and adapt. And I think now, especially with artificial intelligence maybe taking over our profession, maybe not, or maybe not yet, let's say that. how can we best adapt to the circumstances and, find ourselves within our interpretation world being the best that we can.
Absolutely.
A fusion between both worlds, the world of acting and the world of interpreting. And why not? So,
I love this. This was an awesome podcast. Well, and I'm just thinking, like, for those who have liked, shared, and subscribed, you will also benefit from Ebru's podcast when she was talking about making our profession go from invisible to visible. This is a perfect example why. Or like Sarah Wheeler, who talks about the emotional intelligence required to do interpretation. Or Jonathan Downey, who talks about how you should like make the profession go from invisible to visible, because you are the third player in this conversation. You're not just a conduit. So yeah, I think that we're this podcast, I think, helped bridge a lot of the different conversations we've had in the past.
well, I think that seeing this through the lens of actors, I think that it really shows that we're not just parrots and a conduit. I think that we're also part of the story. And one more element that I would add on this is that not everyone who speaks in front of us is an eloquent speaker. But if you do have training, then you can take a non eloquent speaker and actually make that person sound better than the original.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard that. I heard that in my training as well. That because some speakers we know we've all interpreted for them. They're very difficult either to understand or to make heads and tails of what their argument is, or seems like they're going round and round. And we make them sound better. And
Or even a union negotiation where it's F this and F that.
oh yeah, no, unions are really something
There's
else.
no real French equivalent for that.
All right. Frances, thank you so much for coming onto this podcast. I think, as Brian said, we brought a lot of the previous week's topic into this one, and the connection between actors and interpreters is really there. And it makes me think about what interpreters did before they started this. And I'm sure that we're not the only ones who had those two similar interests.
Yeah, my feeling is next week, Alain's going to be applying to Jacques Lecoq. And we won't be seeing him anymore.
Yeah.
But on that note.
On that note, Brian, Frances, everyone, don't forget to like, share, subscribe. There's lots of tips there. And we'll see each other for another episode next time, Found Interpretation Podcast. So thanks again.
Thank you. Thanks.